but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and Thursday means we're joined by the legends that are Malcolm MacDonald and John Gibson, and they join us on a very sad day for football with the sad announcement today that the legendary broadcaster and BBC football commentator John Motton, who was popularly known as Motty, has died. A 50-year career with the BBC. He was best known for Match of the Day, where he was involved from 1971. He often pointed to the Hereford game, of course, in the FA Cup that Newcastle United played in, as the game that helped launch his career. He commented on over 2,500 televised games. He became an OBE for services to sports broadcasting in 2001. And amazing. During his career, he covered 10 World Cups, 10 European Championships, and 29 FA Cup finals. A hell of a career. Somebody who's probably been mimicked by a lot of people over the years, a lot of people who love to do a little bit of comedy and impersonating, etc. But what an absolute legend. Somebody who was part of my childhood. I'm sure he was part of many of yours out there. And we just want to thank him for everything he did, and hope our best wishes with his family. And Malcolm, I'm sure you have lots of happy memories of John Motton as well.
John, yes, I do. He was such a lovely guy. And an enthusiast, not about footballers, football clubs, the whole business, and he was great company as well. And he was a cracking after dinner speaker. He had some fabulous tales to tell. But he became famous on the back of our defeat at Hereford. So we launched his career, John.
We certainly did. We certainly did. And that's actually very true, Malcolm, because if you remember, we played the replay, because it was postponed so often, on the Saturday of the following round.
That's right.
The next round was being played on the Saturday we played, and Motty was a young commentator and was sent along to Hereford just to do the bit at the end of Match of the Day when Newcastle, First Division side, duly beat a non-league side, and it would get just a couple of the goal highlights at the end of the day. In fact, because the result was what it was, it led the BBC Match of the Day that night, with Motty sort of catapulted into the star spot. And of course, he did it so well, he become legendary almost on the spot. And he was very famous for that sheepskin jacket, which is on the photograph there. He became known for wearing that. And I got to know Motty well, and he became a dear friend. His wife was from up here, you know.
Was she? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was a Newcastle girl, and therefore he had a great fondness for us, and he became a personal friend of Ricky George, who scored the winner.
That's right. Yes,
he became a good friend of his, and was always at the Hereford. Bless him, we've lived on the result till today. I know how often I've asked you to go down to dinners, and you did go. I
did. I went and spoke there.
Motty was invited down every year because of the commentator, and I think he went every year in Ricky George's taxi when he was a taxi driver. But he was a lovely, lovely man. He was the doyen of everybody that's come since owes a little something to Motty, and the doors Motty opened for them.
Sure, he was a great statistician as well.
Yes, he was.
And there wasn't a fact about football that he didn't know and have records of.
He did terrific homework, and that's the secret of any success, is that you absolutely done your homework and know your facts, so anything that comes up, you can react to it. That's the secret. And as they say with everything, the greatest ad libs in the world are rehearsed, of course. And that is very true. But I didn't realise until you told us, Steve, that Motti had passed away this morning. So that's...
Yeah, it was literally breaking news as just before we came on air. So I just did a little bit of research, and yeah, I mean, amazing to hear. No surprise to hear how prolific he'd been, and I mean, literally every time you put the TV on, you know, in that era, 70s onwards, he was commentating.
And of course, everybody, all the impersonators and everything, made a huge living out of doing people like Motti, didn't they? You know, Mike Yarwood, and always did Motti in his sheepskin jacket and all that. Happy memories. Happy memories.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. He was a lovely man, great man, and for me was one of the top commentators of all time.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing as well, it's ironic, isn't it, that the announcement should come as we are doing a programme to talk about Newcastle in a cup final, albeit it's not the FA Cup, what she was famously for, it's the League Cup. But it's ironic that we should, on the day we are previewing Wembley about, but it's synonymous with cup finals, and Wembley Cup finals was John. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Okay, excitement levels are starting to lift, Malcolm. The cup final is on the horizon. You guys are, of course, going to be pre-match. You're going to be at the NX in Newcastle, sold out, I believe, doing a little pre-match talk, and then going back to the comfort of your living rooms to absorb the final on TV. I'll be down there. Looking forward to getting down there and going to the new Wembley as a Newcastle fan. I have been for the FA Trophy. I did for the non-league day. It's fantastic. It's a lot better than it was. Let's face it, it couldn't get worse. But yeah, are you getting a bit excited, Malcolm? The interviews are starting to build up on Sky, and you know, the supplements out with the Chronicle now, and everyone's talking about it. So are you starting to get the atmosphere yourself?
Yes, I am. And I think that last weekend against Liverpool, I think that sort of shocked us all somewhat with what took place over that 90 minutes, particularly in the first 20 minutes. But I think that we can all look at that as a total one-off. And that we're going to get down to some serious business on Sunday. Good luck to Karius making his debut in a cup final. Most remarkable, astonishing affair. It really is. But I do feel for Nick Pope, bless him, it was as much as anything, I felt it was a bad bounce. He was expecting the ball to come up off the ground, and it didn't. It stayed low, and he was sort of committed with his upper half to controlling the ball. So he had to go down to meet the ball.
And he'd just done it about 2 or 3 minutes earlier, Malcolm, as well, hadn't he? That was the frustrating thing. He'd just come out and, you know, got in with his head, and, you know, he'd done it well. But this, I agree. Watching it back now, it's so frustrating, Mal. It was that bad bounce.
Yes, yeah, and poor old fella. Because I don't think he's played in a cup final before, has he?
No.
So this was
not when you're with Burnley.
Might have played in the playoff. Did he play in a playoff final? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know Burnley's history that well. But no, I mean, it's frustrating. One would hope he's young enough, of course, and going to be at Newcastle long enough to partake in another one, John. Certainly, he'll have the bit between his teeth when cup games are played in future. But yeah, I mean, look, are you getting cup fever, John? You and I and Malcolm have all been here before. On, you know, you as a journalist, me as a fan, Malcolm as a player. Are you getting excited, John?
I am, without a shadow of a doubt. And the frustration, the anger and annoyance I felt over Liverpool has subsided, and that was only because it was self-inflicted. For 20 minutes, we committed suicide. We let in 2 bad goals. The best defence in the league by a million miles, let in 2 bad goals, and then got the goalkeeper sent off. And the reason I was frustrated is I was convinced, because we did brilliantly after that. Down to 10 men after 20 minutes and 2 goals down, we were brave. And if we had taken our chances, and how often do we say that, we could have got something out the game, because we missed some good chances. But I just felt that the Liverpool defence was vulnerable and looked vulnerable, and it didn't fancy Maxi on the day. And when we got corners with big lads, it was uneasy, and they were proved to be vulnerable. A few days later, they get another 2-goal start against Real Madrid, but nobody gets sent off, and they get their backsides taken out big time. But I mean, my sort of depression and anger and upset over that has completely subsided, and I'm back now in Geordie mode, which is let us get up and get at them for the final, because we've got to. It's a shame what's happened with the goalkeeping situation, not just for Nick, and it is for him, because by gum, what a season he's had. We may have the best defensive record, and that reflects on the back four, but he's oft done well when it's got through the back four on the very odd occasion. He's done brilliant, bringing off world-class saves when he hasn't been troubled in a game, and he's kept his temperament, his motivation, and his alertness. He's going to be a miss, because, and I do hope Lloris gets all the luck that he didn't get in his other cup final with Liverpool, because he needs that. I mean, it's frightening and it's staggering, isn't it, to think that in 2 years, his only competitive game was 45 minutes in the desert for Newcastle United on a friendly, and that's the only 45 minutes he's played in the last 2 years. Now, that is an awful lot of rust. And it doesn't matter how much you play in training and you keep goal in training. It is not like a competitive atmosphere. And then add a cup final on the back of that with a full house and the world looking at it. It is tough. And, without going into it, I think Carl Darlow must be absolutely kicking himself. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but, with hindsight, he pushed to leave because he was sick of sitting on the bench here and he wanted to play. So he signed for Hull. And what's he done at Hull? Sat on the bench. He's never played one game for Hull. He sat on the bench without getting on. And as a consequence of sitting on their bench in the Championship instead of our bench in the Premier League, he can't play in a cup final, which he would have done, of course, had he stayed. And, of course, the amazing thing is, guys, if you remember how much faith Eddie Howe had in him, when we played the second leg of the semi-final with Southampton, if you recall, boys, it was on transfer deadline day.
That's right.
And the game was finishing about 10 to 10, and the transfer deadline was 11 o'clock, 1 hour away. And all the forms were signed by Hull, by Newcastle United, and by Darlow well before the game, kept in the safe at Hull to be sent to the Football Association in the Premier League the minute this game was over up here, because Eddie wanted him to sit on the bench that night in case... Eddie wanted him to sit on the bench that night in case anything happened to Nick Pope, when he could have put Karius on the bench. He could have put the ex-Liverpool boy on the bench, but he didn't. He wanted Darlow there for belt and braces. Darlow wasn't needed in that game, but could have been needed in this game. It is unbelievable, this set of circumstances, but you've got to be optimistic. You've got to look at what the lad did to get his transfer to Liverpool and be part of the Liverpool scene. And you've got to hope that the back four in front of him revert to what they've been for most of the season, which is watertight, not in the first quarter of an hour against Liverpool, but most of the season, and that they protect him and allow his confidence to grow into the match. And then if that happens with Bruno back, etc., we've still got a good chance. I think the biggest test for the keeper is not as much as is he decent? Has he got a pedigree? Because he has it. I think, Mal, it's about mental toughness. Is he going to let the memory of what happened in the Champions League final gnaw at him inside him and worry him? And if he's fragile mentally, we're in trouble. If he's tough mentally, which the hope is that he is, then things can be all right. But I think his main problem is going to be mental toughness, and I hope he gets a couple of crosses early doors, that he comes off his line and takes confidently, and everything settles down, etc., etc. But the eyes of the whole world, the neutrals are going to be looking at much as our goalkeeper and Marcus Rashford shooting as they are at the overall match, because to the neutrals, that's going to be part of the story. To us, hey, I tell you what, I hope we win 1-0 and our goalkeeper gets man of the match. That would do for me. That would do for me.
It's weird, really. That these kind of things, get thrown up in football. It happens. Of course, Mark Gillespie's only played 3 competitive games for Newcastle as well. A Geordie lad. We all assume that it's going to be Karius playing, but of course, Eddie Howe will play his cards close to his chest, and there won't be any announcement about that until a little bit later. This week, of course. But it's interesting because it has happened before, and I did mention this last night on the show. But on NUFC.com in 1924, and I'm confident to say, John, you weren't there at this one either.
I think I just missed it, actually. The bus didn't turn up.
Well, of course, fielding just 2 senior players at Aston Villa in their final league game ahead of the FA Cup final, for which they were fined, incidentally. The Magpies lost the services of their first-choice custodian, Sandy Much, when he limped off with a knee injury during a 6-1 loss. That put him out of the final just 5 days later, and it prompted a recall for his understudy, Bill Bradley, whose most recent senior team action had come 3 months earlier. Much's misadventure came in a collision with an opponent, Bradley simultaneously keeping goal for the reserves as they lost to South Shields reserves in the final of the Newcastle Infirmary Cup. That was actually his 3rd reserve game in just 4 days, all at the Gallagher. Following a North Eastern League fixture on the Friday, a Northumberland Senior Cup final victory over Blythe Spartans on the Saturday. Joining up with the first team squad at the Harrow base, Bradley's place in the side wasn't confirmed until the day of the final, when Much finally bowed to the inevitable and pulled out. Bradley duly lined up against Villa at Wembley in those pre-substitute days, and although reportedly very shaky under fire, began with that later turned out to be the hero of the game because Newcastle won 2-0. Fantastic, that, Malcolm. Let's hope history repeats itself.
Let's hope indeed. Yes, it's a wonderful story. But you have to feel for Much, of course.
I remember I researched that just before it came out on NUFC for a piece I was doing that's going in the paper. If we remember, 1924 was the year after Wembley first opened. 23 is when it opened with the famous white horse with the policeman on it patrolling the crowd, if you remember. The following year, 24, we went down and we won that match 2-0 with him in goal. We won 2-0 and both goals were scored in the last 8 minutes. So, I mean, a repeat at Wembley on Sunday would be fine. And I do believe, although I'm not 100% certain, Malcolm, that the goalkeeper, was it the dad of Alec Much, the physio?
I think Much was
correct.
Yeah. Yes, I believe it was. Yes, and that was.
I think it was his dad.
But I mean, and he was then the physio when I came as a player.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of goalkeeping things that have happened because this is a goalkeeping crisis. I hope it turns out the way it did turn out then. But if you remember, in 1999, Steve, and you'll remember this, when we last played at Wembley in the cup final, It was against Manchester United, exactly the same as it is this time, but it was in the FA Cup, not the League Cup. And there was a goalkeeping switch surprise that day because Wood Hull had picked Steve Harper for only his 10th first-team game. Only his 10th. And he picked him ahead of Shay Given, who went on to make 460-odd appearances for Newcastle, and only one player, Jimmy Lawrence, the goalkeeper of the Edwardian side, played more games in the history of Newcastle for the club than Shay did. But we selected Steve Harper for only his 10th first-team game to take on Manchester United, who had won the league, were about to win the FA Cup and won the Champions League, the greatest Premier League side of all time, that was voted. And Wood Hullett, who loved to do controversial things, like suggest how hopeless Alan Shearer was, not give Rob Lee a squad number, show the door to Stuart Pearce. I mean, he was terrific at doing the unusual. It was, if you remember, famously in a derby, he put Shearer and Duncan Ferguson on the bench and started with a young kid called Robinson against Sunderland. Lost the derby at St James's Park and left the club the next morning. But Wood was controversial, to say the least. But I prefer to think of the Bradley one because that ended up with us winning, and the Steve Harper one didn't, as we well know, of course. We lost.
Yeah, there was bad blood, wasn't there, between Hullett and Alan Shearer?
Sorry? Oh, I mean, Alan Shearer's career with us was for Wood Hullett, who wouldn't have...
Yeah, it reminded me very much of the situation that I had back in the 70s with Gordon Lee.
With Gordon Lee? Yeah, with Gordon Lee.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with Alan was that when Hullett left and we got Bobby Robson, I went to see him at the Gosford Park Hotel. We sat in his room and he said, Gibbo, the first thing I've got to do, he says, I've got to get Alan Shearer on side because he's the future of this club. And I know what happened with Wood Hullett was sitting in Bobby's room at the Gosford Park, his bedroom. And he said they were going down on Chelsea to play Chelsea that weekend. He said, I'm going to sit in his room all night and talk to Alan about what's gone wrong with his game, what's important from my point of view. We lost, I think, 1-0 or by a single goal at Chelsea. But the next game, which was Bobby Robson's debut at St James's Park, if you recall, we played Sheffield and beat them 8, and Alan Shearer scored 5 of them. So I think Bobby had got through to Alan. And,
yes, absolutely.
That was the outcome of it. But yeah, I mean, I just hope, having sat through everything we've all sat through, that we can just end this long wait for Wembley success, because the European Face Cup was actually won in Budapest, not at Wembley. Wait for the long success of a Wembley victory. You know, it is our first Wembley Cup final in 24 years. I'm determined to enjoy the day and enjoy that. But wouldn't it be lovely if we could just top it off with bringing a silver pot home?
It would be great. It would be. It really would be. I want to ask you about this, Malcolm, because this has been a topic of conversation on NUFC Matters this week. And David John Cook says, what's your view on the decision not to do an open top bus ride around the city if we don't win? How did Malcolm feel about the 1974 one? Now, it's been quite split, this. In fact, I'm going to put a vote out. I know we've only got about 100 watching this morning because people will be playing catch up tonight. But I will put a vote out in the chat. But it's not as cut and dry. I thought a lot of people would agree with the decision, but there's a lot of people who want to say thank you to the team. So what's your view as a former player, Malcolm, about open top buses tours around the city when you get beat?
I was absolutely opposed to it before it happened. But once it started, the people of Tyneside, they changed my mind for me, because the support that was shown was so total and genuine, and they were and people were so kind and good to us. You know, there was the fact that we had got beat 3-0 at Wembley, there was no criticism at all, and I was absolutely staggered that such a big-hearted response to us could take place, and so I had my opinion completely altered whilst I was on that bus, and so I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame that that they've decided not to have an open top bus afterwards. One thing that I always remember is seeing the Liverpool bus doing their bit. It was on the news, and there was they said, oh, and Liverpool had 250,000 people. At Newcastle, where having lost, we had over 500,000 people. You know, it was double the numbers that turned out in Liverpool, and yet we had lost, and that really caused me to change to change how I viewed things quite dramatically. It's not that I don't think it was that people were supporting success, but I think people were just grateful for that exciting run that we had, and that it had been it had been a really exciting day, despite the fact that we had lost with regards to the final. And I think I really do feel that they're just missing a bit of a trick. They really are. Because it's, as much as anything, it's for the club and the players and all the staff to be able to visibly say a big thank you to for all the support, and there is incredible support up here.
The Civic Centre, the council have said there will be a civic reception for the players, win or lose, John. So the city do want to say thank you. That's for certain. So maybe there might be the scenes that we saw at when Newcastle got promoted under Kevin Keegan, and the players coming out on the balcony, and so there might well be something, but just not a tour around the city.
The interesting thing about it all, because it is an emotive thing. At the time of Malcolm happening in 98, 99, I was all for the open top bus. I'm not so certain now, and one of the reasons is why I'm not so certain now is not only because I believe Newcastle are on the cusp of winning things, and so they'll have plenty of time for the open top bus if it doesn't happen to be this coming week because we've won at this Wembley. But the difference I felt there was an opportunity, as Malcolm rightly said, for the players to show the fans their love and a thank you to the fans as well as the fans to the players in 74, and again, if you like, in 98 and 99. But I feel now, if Newcastle win, blimey, isn't that what it's about? You'll not be able to hold people back. If we don't, I feel the players do a lap of honour after every game now with the fans. After every St James's Park thing, they do a lap of honour. So we're great thank you for when they beat Southampton in the semi-final to make Wembley. They went round the pitch, everybody cheered to the rafters, they cheered to the rafters, give each other a kiss and a cuddle, and off they went. So I do feel that it has, if we lose at Wembley, it has been diluted because we've had all these aftermath, and have the pictures in the dressing room of them celebrating, and this is every win. So I don't think there's quite the need that there was in the old days. And the interesting thing about the old days as well, is I always remember, because of my involvement with John Hall, when Newcastle won promotion with the Entertainers to go back in the Premier League, they were wanting a bus and it did happen to go from the Gosford Park to the Civic Centre. And Kevin Keegan said privately at the time to John Hall and Freddie Shepherd that he didn't want to go on it, and because he wanted to go on when we won something big. And the reason he said that is because he played at Liverpool and he played at Hamburg, where they won the European Cup at Liverpool, and they played in the final of the European Cup at Hamburg. So he felt that winning the second division championship, if you like, wasn't of the same quality. He was persuaded and told he had to go on because he was Mr. Newcastle United at the time, and he did go on. But that was the reluctance that Alan Shearer was talking about the cup finals of 98 and 99, when he felt slightly embarrassed. And it's interesting. But they do have this relationship with the fans at the end of every game at St James's Park, and they did have that when they won the semi-final against Southampton, if doing a lap of honour. And it was a lap of honour because it was honourable. We were at Wembley. So whether I'd want to do it if we got well stuffed on Sunday, I'm not sure. But I prefer to think that we might still be doing it anyway because we win. And if
that's the spirit, John. We're going to win. We're going to win the vote, actually.
Absolutely. It's a two-horse race, and if we can shoot the other horse, we'll be perfectly all right.
just obviously a quick poll there. 61% don't want to have one, 39% do. I'll leave that up for the rest of the show anyway. And moving on to the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, starting with Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from mrvickies.co.uk, email them at info@mrvickies.co.uk, or call them on 01768 210 102. Why not try some new beers at Blowhole Brewery? You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks also to United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays based in Morpeth. Telephone 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Thanks also to 3 Properties. They specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the last 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Media Arts for all the videos. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button underneath this video today. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to your social media. If you're out and about, you can catch us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. If you want to join the channel, click join and you'll find out our membership packages down there. Very easy to do. Or if you want to become a cult member, £25 a month, go to nufcmatters.com and look for membership pack, or put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight there. Anyone who subscribes to the channel will get a free car sticker. To get your car sticker, simply email john@nufcmatters.com. Got a few events coming up over the next few weeks. Steve Howie, Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available for £29 on voucher. An evening with Nobby Solano, Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets £15. Book at nufcmatters.com. Nobby Solano is also at Felling Cricket Club on Good Friday the 7th of April at 4 o'clock. Tickets are £10 and available behind the bar. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April That's at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. We've also got a vast array of t-shirts available at the website. If you want your special Wembley t-shirt, you can go to nufcmatters.com and get one now while stocks last.
Okay, Malcolm, the big question, I guess, that will be on all our lips on Sunday is team. Who's he going to pick? We've got the return of Bruno, of course. One would imagine he'll be an easy shoe-in. But I guess it's who he plays, alongside him in midfield that's going to be the big talking point. Joe Willock's fitness, of course, is a question mark over that. ASM, has he done enough in the last 3 games to get a place in the team, or is he going to go for something different? Is he going to change things and surprise us all? What's your view on the team selection that Eddie Howe's going to look at the weekend?
Well, I think that the defence picks itself, but with Bruno coming back in the side, I think that will just be a shoe-in for Willock. It looks like he might miss out. So, and in all honesty, is the Wembley stage going to bring the best out of St Maximin? I don't even know whether he knows what his best actually is, because I think that he seemed exceedingly happy with his performance against Liverpool. And I actually heard somebody saying, and this was just after a few minutes, oh, look, St Maximin, he's really up for it, wanting to make sure that he's got a spot for the final. And this is my constant criticism of him. In the game against Liverpool, he didn't get a cross in and he didn't get a shot in. So what's the point? What's the point of the ball being at his feet if he's not going to get a cross in, if he's not going to get a shot in? It's an actual waste of possession on his part. And I would much rather see somebody with much less skill than he has, but somebody who's got a bit of pace, get to the line and whip it in. And if that were to happen, you would get more players wanting to get into the box because they know that it's going to come flashing across. With St Maximin, nobody knows when to go in the box. When's he actually going to cross it? Because he beats one and then he looks to beat another and then he wants to go back and beat the first one again. And so in the end, you stop making the runs into the box. And against Manchester United, I couldn't help but see that at 2-1 down, Barcelona last week, they just flooded the Man United box with bodies. They were getting bodies in, they were getting crosses into those bodies, and they caused so much havoc in the Man United defence and it needs somebody to get to the dead ball line and whip it across, not to do fancy Dan stuff. That's not going to win any game, never mind a cup final. And so we have a sparse penalty area, the opposing penalty area. It's sparse in numbers of Newcastle players because people don't know when to go in with St Maximin on the ball. And so quite how Eddie Howe is going to get that sorted, I don't know. I just wonder if he should set St Maximin targets. Say, right, okay, in the first half, I want you to get 5 crosses in and 1 shot. And if he were to do that, that would be 1 shot more and 5 crosses more than he's done in the last heaven knows how many games. You know, you go back to Wolves for his last goal, and yet he has more ball than anybody else. And
Steve, you definitely opened a can of worms here, you know, giving Mali's head on Maxi.
Yeah.
Well, I did, and I know a lot of people don't like his views on Maximin.
Right, but the point that I'm trying to make is that he has got the ability to get beyond the back line of Man United to either get a shot in or a cross in. Do it. Get beyond and finish it off with a cross or a shot. And if he were to do that, watch the difference in all the other players. All of a sudden they're saying, hey, he's getting into the box. Right, I better start making runs. And you would see midfield players making really positive runs into the box. When St. Maximin has got the ball, right now, they don't make runs because they know it's not going to come in. Can
I jump in here?
Go on. Yes, John, please.
Looking at the team generally quickly first, because that was the original question, Steve. I think we'll get Bruno in, as Malcolm was probably saying. I think we'll get Bruno in with Sean Longstaff and Joe Linton in the middle. I think the best Willock can hope for is a seat on the bench. If he's had a hammy, and the suggestion was it was a hamstring injury, they're very dodgy. They could go if he's pushed, and he'll push himself and say he's fit. It's Wembley, it's a one-off. He'll be desperate to play. I think the most he can really hope for is the bench. And maybe he won't even make the bench. That being so, I think the midfield then becomes automatic, which is Bruno, Longstaff, Joe Linton, and with Joe Linton going there instead of wide left, which is his 2 positions, I think the forward line will be Almiron, Wilson, and St. Maximin. I think Wilson will get the shout ahead of Isaac because he's a Joe Wilson, he's a Callum Wilson fan, and he's a centre forward that was good enough to go to the World Cup with England 2 or 3 months back. I think, and also he's very loyal, the manager. I think he will play Callum Wilson centre forward, and I'll disagree to a certain extent with Malcolm. I think that being the case, St. Maximin, I thought he played well against Liverpool. I thought he played well, and I think he was.
Well, I'm not disputing that. He did.
But I think there was some end product. I think sometimes we murder him, and he drives me crackers because he's got so much ability. But I thought he did well in that game, and I think he deserves to play in the final. And I think the final might be the stage, you hope it is, that he requires. And what's the alternative? And thinking the alternative's Joe Linton, if Willett was fit for midfield, but if he's not, and I suspect he's not, and you can't play Gordon, I guess there's Murphy as the alternative to St. Maximin. But I think we'll go the 3 midfielders and Almiron, Wilson, and St. Maximin.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a couple of decisions to make for me. It's obviously who he plays in goal, which we all presume is going to be Karius.
Yes.
I mean, would you look, if we're struggling, if we're a goal down in the first half, God forbid, would you look at potentially putting Isaac and Wilson on the pitch at the same time?
Not until later in the game. I'd be loath to make early changes, Steve. What I think that we have to give great concentration to, because I do have the belief that Newcastle, they are a second half side, and when I say that they show they are more dangerous in the second half than they are in the first. If we score early, there seems to be a bit of nerves with regards to holding on to that lead. So let it come a bit later. What I would be impressing on the side is, let's make sure that come half time that Manchester United have 0 on as a score. So keep the game as tight as possible in that first half. Then let's see what we can do in the second half. It might be that that 1 or 2 substitutions will be made. The Wembley pitch can be quite tiring for certain players,
It's a big
so
old pitch.
Sorry,
It's a big pitch.
yes, and lush as well, and so it affects certain players, and so you have to be very aware of that you need to be substituting somebody who's just run out of energy. So yeah, I would really love to see Wilson and Isak working together, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't. And as I say, St. Maximin, if he just starts getting the ball into the box, I go back to when Man United were 2-1 up against Barcelona, and Barcelona just kept throwing players forward, and Man United looked really, really shaky in their own box, really shaky, and Barcelona, they scored to equalise, but there were also other chances. Balls kicked off the line. The keeper made a couple of really good saves, and so Man United, they can be shook up without any shadow on that one, I think, and what we need to see is numbers getting in the box. That's where Man United are shaky. When numbers of opposition are getting into the box and the ball is then following.
And when our chances do come, guys, and they'll come for both sides, we've got to take them. We haven't been recently. We have got to take the chances when they come, because they won't come too often in a cup final. Our percentage of conversions has dropped dramatically, and that has got to improve. I mean, I think we actually shook Liverpool when we were 2-0 down and with 10 men. But again, the chances didn't go in. We missed them. Big Burn got head and shoulders above everybody on a cross and headed, and didn't really work the keeper, etc., etc. As much as I want us to keep the defence tight in front of the goalkeeper, the new goalkeeper, we've got to take our chances, because the team that take the chance will be the team that wins the cup, and we've got to get converting our chances without a shadow of doubt, I think.
ASM played well last week. I would start him 100%, says Tom. Steve says seems to think that the playing surface at Old Trafford and the Amex Stadium and Molineux are bigger than Wembley these days. I beg to differ. I think Wembley's bigger, but you might know more than me. We should have had a pen at their place in the first 10. Their defence isn't great. Hope we've spent all week learning how to attack the ball from set pieces. It's a great point by Craig, that, Malcolm. We talk about it on here week in, week out. Set pieces. We need to be better. Yeah,
I would agree on that, Steve. Yes, it's getting on the end of things. You know, when you think that we've got Dan Burn, who's 6'13", and we've got 1 or 2 who aren't far short of
We've
him.
got huge guys,
Yes, and they should be getting it and causing all sorts of problems. And Trippier, he's one of the best suppliers into the box from free kicks and corners and what have you.
When you think of the size, Malcolm, when you think of the size of Botman and Byrne, they're ginormous, and they haven't.
And Shah gets up brilliantly.
Yeah, but I mean, Botman and Byrne haven't headed a goal all season, have they?
No,
I mean,
they
Byrne's
haven't.
goal was a super one on the floor, and just took them. But on headers, on set pieces, those two with Trippier's delivery should be knocking goals in.
Yes.
And
yes, absolutely, John.
We're not. So we've got to do better on that without a shadow of doubt. And this is the time to start. Believe you me, Sunday's the time to start.
It definitely is. Malcolm, can I just ask you to wish Graham Robson a happy 60th birthday? Graham Moore, his friend, has got in touch. He said Malcolm was his idol. Could you do a quick happy birthday message to him? It's Graham Robson.
All right, Graham. Yes, I wish you a very, very happy birthday. Yes, 60 years of age, my word. And you're sort of on your way to pension age. Well, I can assure you it's not as bad as it sounds. It really isn't. But hope you're remaining active and staying in good health. So very happy birthday, Graham.
Just a quick one on Wembley, lads. And this was a question from Gary. He said, does anyone think Wembley not having the Twin Towers incorporated into the new Wembley has killed the image? Do you miss the Twin Towers, John?
Well, I do, because I'm a great fella for history. I mean, we've got the arch now, which is very symbolic, isn't it? Which is taking the place of the Twin Towers, if you like, without a shadow of doubt. Of course, when I love history, I think they could have made Wembley wonderful and retained the Twin Towers. But they were obviously wanting a new look. The arch has become an established thing, and over the years, that'll be as huge as anything. There was a few people not too keen on the Angel of the North when it was first put up, what was it, 25 years ago? But we all adore it now, and it is the symbol of your coming home, your Geordie land, when you see the Angel of the North. So things do change. The history was always the Twin Towers, and I used to refer in the old days to, Newcastle going down to play at the Twin Towers, and that was well known. But everything changes, and I'm all for change, because I want everything to change on Sunday and us to win a cup instead of just taking part in it. Yeah, so I'm all for change, especially the result on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, there is one point that I would make, and I hope that the referee stays totally neutral. I've seen too many referees side with Man United, and I get sick and tired of witnessing it. So I hope that the referee, his assistants, and the VAR people do their job thoroughly and totally neutrally.
Yeah. What's your advice then, Malcolm, for any players? We do know a few of the players do watch the podcast every now and then. What's your advice for the players going into this game? You've played not one but two cup finals for Newcastle, 74 and 76. What's your advice for the lads in the build-up?
My advice is that don't let nerves get the better of you. Wembley is a fantastic stadium to go and play on. Oh, it really is. The atmosphere is second to none. Go and enjoy that. Don't be put off by it. Don't be overawed or even frightened by it. Absorb it and get out on that on the Wembley pitch, and don't go changing anything from your normal game. And Wembley can do that to certain individuals. Don't change things. Just keep doing what has got Newcastle there to Wembley in the first place. And it is vitally important. Get your shots in. If you don't shoot, you won't score.
How do you see the game going, Mal? And I'm going to come to John on the same question.
I'm looking for that back four to shake itself up after the Liverpool game and get back to that brilliant organisation that they had. And people keep talking about Rashford. We've had other terrific forwards come up against this defence of ours over the season, and they've just casually blotted them out. And I'm looking for them to do that again on Sunday. There is a strength in the way that Man United play, but what they don't do is keep it going for very long, and so no matter what's happening in front of Newcastle players, they've got to keep working, keep grafting, keep chasing, and work to turn it around. And against Man United, you can turn it around quite quickly. They play some lovely stuff for 2 or 3 minutes, and then it seems to falter for them. And we must have absolute concentration at all times, particularly up front. When a chance comes along, you can't afford to miss it at Wembley. You have to get on the end of it and send it goalwards.
Prediction, Malcolm?
I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to Newcastle United.
Okay, John, how do you see the big game going? And give us your prediction as well.
Fascinating. I would like to think, with Newcastle's form slightly tapering off recently, we'll go to the match with only 1 victory in the last 7 Premier League games. And with the goalkeeping crisis, the rest of the country, always for Man U anyway, the prawn sandwich brigade, all scattered all throughout England. But the rest of the country will see us as the outsiders in a 2-horse race. That's fine. What I would love Eddie Howe to have done this week is do what Fergie used to do brilliantly with Manchester United, and that's create a siege mentality. Get them all together. The rest of the country are against us. Everybody's against us. The rest of the country hate us because we've got Saudi owners and we're supposed to have this huge pot of gold for the transfer market, etc., etc. They're all waiting for us to fall on our face. Let's go and sort the world out. Fergie was terrific at doing that. We've already got great camaraderie in the dressing room. They really do believe in each other and are willing to fight for each other. If that's topped up by Eddie producing the siege mentality, and we go out from the first kickoff wanting to get amongst it and wanting to be bold and brave and solid, our fans will eat off that, and our fans will absolutely lift the team. Because believe you me, the one certainty on Sunday is that we win the fan contest. Mm-hmm. Our fans will outdo their fans. That's the biggest certainty of all time. We've then got to do exactly the same for the hour and a half or 2 hours if it went to extra time on the field. But, I look at all the positives, and you've got to say that the positives are we've got the best defence, as Malcolm has said, in the Premier League. Let's get back to being as mean as it is possible. We've got Bruno back. Big Joe's going to be fit. Callum Wilson must be bursting a gut to show that it was correct. He went to the World Cup. I'm a big time Charlie. Let's hope Maxi says the same thing. Let's hope, as one of the boys said on that Marcus Rashford gets a hammy tonight. I hope he's fit afterwards. I'm not wanting to wish the lad any harm at all. But if he wants to miss the final because he's a little bit tired or his hammy's tight, then I suggest that'll do for us. We don't mind if that happens. But we went to Manchester United and got a 0-0. I think this is a battle between two outstanding managers. What these two managers have done in reviving their clubs are sensational. What Eddie Howe's done from us being a relegation side last season, relegation threatened, to what we've done this season, going for the Champions League and in the final of a cup, is sensational. Den Haag's done a very, very good job at Manchester United and has been brave, sorting out Cristiano Ronaldo, etc., bringing Sancho back into the field with love and tenderness and arm around him, and he's handled everything well. So it's two very, very good managers that have been a bit of a miracle workers, to be truthful, that are against each other. I'm thinking like Malcolm. I'm thinking Newcastle. My heart wants Newcastle to win so much I dare it blinking forecast anything else, because my heart will give up on me, because it'll say traitor. The body's a traitor. I'm taking Newcastle to win by a single goal, the same as Malcolm said, and it might be late on when the goal's scored. And in a way, as Malcolm was saying, you score in the first 6 minutes, can you hang on? If we score in the 88th minute, I'm certain we can hang on for 2 minutes. So I'll be quite happy if it's late on. And funny enough, that Bradley thing we talked about early, boys, when he played in goal, and he was the reserve goalkeeper, catapulted in 24. We won 2-0. He kept the clean sheet and we scored 2 goals in the last 8 minutes. One of the goals was scored by Stan Seymour, the dad, this Stan Seymour Senior, the famous dad.
Senior.
So, if we score 2 in the last 8 minutes and win 2-0 with an unexpected goalkeeper between the posts, that'll do for me, baby. I'll have a slice of that. And I'll cancel Monday completely. I'll go straight from Sunday to Tuesday because I'll be celebrating that much.
And don't forget the John Gibson I've cancelled dying t-shirts are available at the website nufcmatters.com, because he cancelled dying because he wants to see Newcastle win something.
I do. And may I add, once we've won the League Cup on Tuesday, I'm not dying again, because I want to see us. I'm not going to die till we've won the Champions League. Now,
you've changed it.
Oh, no. I'm staying
it's
for this
called ambition, Steve.
Because, to be truthful, I might only be giving myself 4 years. If we win the Champions League in 4 years' time, I might have to snuff it then, but I'm not going to, baby. I've waited since 69. You think you're going to get me shuffling off the mortal coil just as we're about to win stuff regularly? No chance.
I don't want to see you go at all, John.
I'm not going anywhere.
It's a happy birthday to former players Wes Saunders, Alan Foggin, and Brian Tinian today. So happy birthday to them. Hope they're having a bit of birthday cake, and I hope the present that they all get is Newcastle getting the monkey off Bobby Moncur's back.
Happy birthday to Foggo, who Malcolm and I know well from sitting upstairs in the Moncur suite. And may I say, the interesting thing, is this a coincidence about Foggo's birthday today? Because the last trophy we won was 1969, and the fella that scored the winning goal in the second leg in Budapest was Alan Foggin. So perhaps this is just another pointer that we're going to do exactly the same, because we were seen as outsiders in 69, They were the best side in Europe, everybody was saying. Uzbekistan, they beat Leeds home and away, and Leeds were the champions of England, and we beat Uzbekistan home and away. So, it's all possible, and Sunday would be a very nice time to prove that to be true.
Absolutely.
I'm going 1-0 as well, lads. That's my prediction. I think it's going to be a very tight game. I'll go 1-0 in extra time. That's what I think. I think we'll get extra time. We'll avoid the dreaded penalties, though. But enjoy Sunday, lads. Enjoy the NX. Make sure you have a great time with Gavin Webster and the lads down there, and then get yourself home and enjoy the final. Look forward to catching up with you next week, when we'll either be celebrating or commiserating one way or another. But for now, it's thanks to Supermac, thanks to Gibbo, and have a good night tonight in the Montague as well, lads. Take care.
Yes, we certainly will.
Boys, keep the faith, boys.
And enjoy the game and the result, hopefully.